Hey friends, welcome. Tonight we dive into a story time almost forgot. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more calming journeys into history. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the whispers of ancient legends and hidden secrets carry you gently into peace. Imagine a world that was too perfect to exist. A city where the walls were covered in gold and the people held powers that could control the very tides of the ocean. This was not a myth. This was Atlantis. The world begins in a place of soft gray light, where the air is thick with the scent of ancient cedar, and the ground is covered in a layer of moss so deep that every step you take feels like sinking into a cloud of velvet. You are walking through a forest of silver birch trees that stretch upward into a sky that is neither night nor day, but a permanent twilight of soft lavender and indigo, where no bird sings and no wind blows to disturb the absolute silence of the moment. Each tree you pass has bark that feels like cold silk under your fingertips, and you find yourself counting the lines on the bark as you move slower and slower with every passing second. The path beneath your feet is made of crushed pearls that glow with a faint inner light, and as you walk, you hear the rhythmic sound of the distant ocean hitting a shore made of soft feathers. The ocean is not made of water, but of liquid moonlight that flows back and forth in a cycle that has no beginning and no end, and you watch the waves as they rise and fall in a hypnotic dance that tells your mind it is time to let go of every thought and every worry. You reach a small stone bridge that crosses a stream of liquid glass, and you stop in the middle of the bridge to look down at your reflection, but you see only the stars that are scattered across the dark surface like tiny diamonds on a bed of black satin. Your breath is becoming synchronized with the movement of the stream, and you feel the cool air entering your lungs and leaving them in a steady flow that warms your chest and relaxes your shoulders until they feel as heavy as lead. You continue into a meadow of tall white grass that sways in a breeze that you cannot feel but only see, and the grass makes a sound like the whispering of old friends in a quiet room. In the center of the meadow stands a lighthouse made of white chalk, and you enter the base of the tower, where the air is cool and smells of salt and old books. You begin to climb the spiral staircase one step at a time, counting from 1 to 100 and then starting again, as the rhythm of your feet on the stone becomes the only sound in the world. The staircase is endless, but you are not tired because in this place energy is constant, and the concept of fatigue does not exist, only the concept of rest. You reach the top and find a room filled with giant pillows made of unspun wool, and you lie down in the center of them, feeling the support of the tower beneath you as it vibrates with the low hum of the earth. The light at the top of the tower is a slow rotating lantern that casts long shadows of amber and gold across the walls, and you watch the shadows as they move in a circle over and over again, never changing their pace and never losing their way. You imagine a giant clock made of sand, where each grain is a memory of a quiet afternoon, and you watch the grains fall through the narrow neck of the glass in a stream that looks like golden water. There are millions of grains, and it will take a lifetime for them to fall, and you have all that time to just lie here and listen to the silence of the meadow and the lighthouse. Your eyes are now so heavy that the world is blurring into a soft haze of gray and gold,
and you feel your body dissolving into the wool of the pillows until you are no longer a person, but a part of the tower and a part of the night. You see a door in your mind that leads to a garden of blue roses where the petals are always covered in dew and the air is filled with the scent of damp earth and honey. You walk through the garden and touch the roses, and they are cold and soft, and they breathe with you in a slow and steady pulse that moves from the garden into the tower and then out to the ocean of moonlight. The stars above are now moving in slow spirals, like cream being stirred into a cup of tea, and you follow the movement with your mind until you are floating among them, weightless and free and completely at peace. The silence is now a physical presence that sits beside you and whispers that everything is all right and that the world will wait for you until you are ready to wake. But for now, you must sleep. You are drifting deeper into the dark, where the colors are soft and the sounds are muffled like a radio playing in another room, and you let yourself fall into the embrace of the infinite night, where there are no words and no stories, only the eternal rhythm of the quiet heart of the universe. You are sinking through the pillows and through the stone and through the earth until you are at the very center of the world, where the fire is cold and the light is dark and the sleep is deep and beautiful and long. And as you sink deeper into the quiet heart of the universe, you find yourself standing at the edge of a great desert made of powdered obsidian, where the dunes are perfectly smooth and the sky is a deep velvet black, filled with nothing but the soft glow of a distant nebula that resembles a slow-moving cloud of violet dust. The sand beneath your feet is cool and fine like silk, and as you walk, you leave no tracks, because the desert is eternal and unchanging, and every step you take is a movement toward a deeper state of relaxation that moves from your toes up to your ankles and slowly into your calves, making your legs feel as solid as the earth itself. The air in this obsidian desert is thin and silent, carrying the faint scent of cold stone and starlight, which is a scent that clears your mind of every lingering image and every half-formed thought until you are a blank slate, reflecting the stillness of the cosmos.
You see a single palm tree in the distance, made of polished silver, with leaves that are long, thin needles of glass that chime softly like the tinkling of ice in a glass whenever a stray thought passes through the air. You reach the tree and sit in its shadow, which is not a shadow of darkness, but a shadow of deeper peace, and you watch as a single drop of silver sap falls from a branch and takes an entire century to reach the ground. In your mind, the slowness of the drop becomes the slowness of your pulse, and you feel your heart beating only once every long interval, like a drum heard from miles away across a silent valley. You imagine a giant loom where the threads of time are being woven into a fabric of deep navy blue, and you watch the shuttle move back and forth, left and right, and a rhythmic motion that lulls your eyes into a state of heavy closing, where the world disappears behind a veil of soft gray mist. You are no longer in the desert, but floating on a raft made of cedar wood on a lake of liquid lavender that is so thick and fragrant that it supports your weight without any effort, and you are drifting toward the center of the lake, where a small island of white marble waits for you. The water of the lake makes a sound like a soft shushing against the side of your raft, and the sound is a command for your brain to stop its searching and for your spirit to find its rest in the fragrance of the purple flowers.
You reach the marble island and step onto the cool stone, which feels like a solid foundation in a world of dreams, and you find a path made of fallen stars that leads to a small cave lined with soft white fur, where the air is warm and smells like a fireplace that has just been extinguished. You lie down on the fur and feel the enclosure of the cave protecting you from the vastness of the space outside, and you realize that you are the only soul in this universe, and that is a thought that brings you ultimate comfort, because there is nothing to do and no one to answer to but the silence itself. You are watching a small candle flame in the corner of the cave that is burning without a wick, and the flame is a pale blue color that does not flicker but stays perfectly still, like a painting of a flame, and you focus your gaze on the center of the blue light until the light expands to fill the entire cave, and then the entire island, and then the entire lake, until everything is a soft blue void where you are floating like a leaf on a calm pond. The blue light is the color of deep sleep, and it moves into your eyes and into your mind and into your soul until you are a part of the blue light, and the blue light is a part of you, and there is no longer any boundary between the dreamer and the dream. You are sinking through the fur and through the marble and through the lavender water and through the obsidian sand until you reach a place where there is no sound and no light and no feeling, but only the pure essence of being, which is the essence of peace. The cycle begins again in your mind, but this time it is even slower and even more distant, as the words become whispers, and the whispers become silence, and the silence becomes the deep and beautiful dark that you have been searching for all along.
The blue void slowly begins to coalesce into a garden of frozen waterfalls, where the water has been turned into pillars of clear, translucent ice that glow with a soft internal luminescence, like giant glowworms trapped in time. You are walking through this garden of ice, and the air is perfectly still and silent, and it carries the crisp, clean scent of high mountain snow and frozen pine needles, which makes every breath you take feel like a cooling balm for your soul. The ground is covered in a layer of fine silver dust that crunches softly and rhythmically under your feet, and you find yourself timing your steps to the slow and steady beat of a heart that is not your own, but the heart of the mountain itself. You reach a circular pool at the center of the frozen waterfalls, and the water in the pool is not frozen, but is a dark liquid silk that moves in slow circular currents like a galaxy spinning in the palm of your hand. You sit at the edge of the pool and watch as a single white petal from a distant tree drifts down through the air, moving in slow motion as it floats toward the surface of the dark water, and you follow its descent with your eyes until it touches the liquid and creates a ripple that takes an eternity to reach the edge. The ripple moves outward in a perfect circle, and as it reaches you, it brings a wave of relaxation that starts at your head and moves down through your neck and into your chest, making you feel as light as the petal and as calm as the pool. You imagine a giant loom in the sky, where the aurora borealis is being woven into a blanket of emerald and violet, and you watch the threads move back and forth, left and right, in a hypnotic pattern that matches the rhythm of your own breathing, as you inhale the violet light and exhale the emerald shadow. The forest of ice begins to fade into a vast hall of white marble, where the pillars are so tall that they disappear into a ceiling of dark clouds, and the floor is so polished that you can see the reflection of the entire universe beneath your feet.
You walk down the hall, and the silence is so profound that you can hear the sound of the stars moving in their orbits, which is a low and steady hum, like the sound of a distant beehive in a summer meadow. You find a bed made of soft white clouds in the center of the hall, and you sink into it, feeling the moisture and the softness of the mist wrapping around your limbs like a protective cocoon that separates you from the world of form and the world of thought. You are no longer walking or sitting or standing, but simply drifting in a sea of pure consciousness where there are no colors and no sounds, only the feeling of being held by the infinite grace of the night. You imagine a clock made of falling snow, where each flake is a second, and you watch as the flakes fall slowly and steadily, covering the world in a blanket of white, forgetting until everything is hidden, and everything is quiet, and everything is exactly as it should be. You feel the weight of your eyelids becoming impossible to lift, and you surrender to the pull of the gravity that is leading you down through the clouds, and through the marble, and through the ice, into the deep and hollow space where sleep resides as a permanent and beautiful guest. The journey is now complete, and the path has disappeared, and you are left in the center of the silence, where the only thing that remains is the slow and steady pulse of the cosmic night.
The cosmic night expands into a vast and silent ocean of liquid amber, where the light is thick and warm and moves with the slow deliberation of ancient honey flowing over a smooth stone table in a room with no windows and no doors. You are floating in this sea of amber, and the warmth penetrates your skin, moving deep into your bones and turning them into heavy pieces of cedar wood that are resting at the bottom of a calm and shallow bay. There is no sound here except for the low-frequency vibration of the golden light, which feels like a hum that you can feel in your teeth and in your fingertips, and in the very center of your forehead, where your thoughts used to be, but are now replaced by a soft and glowing emptiness. You see a school of transparent fish swimming around you, and they move so slowly that they appear to be frozen in the amber, and you watch as their fins move like delicate pieces of lace in a gentle breeze that only exists in a dream you had a long time ago. The surface of the amber sea is a mirror reflecting a sky of solid gold where there are no stars, but only a single large sun that is permanently setting and casting a long and unchanging shadow over the entire universe. You follow this shadow as it moves across the water, and you find that the shadow is a path of cool indigo that leads to a mountain made of soft gray wool, where the clouds are resting like tired giants after a long journey across the world. You climb onto the wool mountain, and the material is so soft that you disappear into it until only your face is visible to the golden sky, and you feel the weight of the mountain supporting you and protecting you from the vastness of the amber sea. You imagine a giant wheel made of dark oak that is turning slowly in the center of the earth, and you can feel the rhythmic thud of the wheel as it moves 1 inch every 1,000 years. And this rhythm becomes your own heartbeat and your own breath and your own existence until you are the wheel and the mountain and the sea all at once. The light begins to dim even further, changing from amber to a dark burnt orange, and then to a deep brownish red that feels like the color of a closed eye in a dark room. And you welcome this darkness because it is the color of total and absolute rest. You hear the sound of a distant bell ringing so softly that it might just be the sound of the wind moving through a hollow reed.
and the sound is a signal for you to let go of the last thread of consciousness that is connecting you to the world of waking life. You are sinking deeper into the wool, and the mountain is sinking into the sea, and the sea is sinking into the earth, and everything is returning to the state of a single silent point of light that is about to go out and leave you in the perfect and beautiful dark. You are no longer a name or a face or a story, but only a vibration in the quiet air and a memory of peace that is drifting through the halls of a palace made of sleep, where the doors are locked and the keys are lost and the night is forever, and you are finally home in the deep and silent dark. The perfect and beautiful dark begins to hum with the sound of a distant rain falling on a vast roof made of thick green leaves in a forest that has never known the touch of a human foot or the sound of a human voice. You are lying on a bed of dry pine needles that have been falling for centuries to create a cushion so thick and soft that you feel as though you are floating just inches above the earth in a state of perfect suspension.
The rain is not a storm, but a steady and predictable rhythm that creates a wall of sound around you, protecting your peace and washing away the last remnants of the day until your mind is as clean as a polished stone at the bottom of a clear mountain stream. You watch as a single drop of rain slides down a long blade of grass, moving so slowly that you can see the reflection of the entire forest within the tiny sphere of water. And you realize that you are also a reflection of this quiet world, where time is measured only by the falling of a leaf or the growth of the moss on the north side of the trees. You see a small firefly moving through the dark, and its light is a soft pulse of emerald that glows and fades and glows again in a pattern that matches the slow rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in the cool, damp air of the woods. The trees around you are ancient giants with roots that reach down into the very core of the planet, and you can feel their slow and steady wisdom moving up through the ground and into your body, giving you the strength to be still and the courage to let go of everything that is not this moment. You imagine a giant loom in the center of the forest, where a cloak of silence is being woven from the threads of the night, and you watch as the shuttle moves back and forth, weaving a fabric that is heavy and warm and exactly the right size to cover you from head to toe. You pull this cloak of silence around you and feel its weight pressing you down into the pine needles until you are a part of the floor of the forest and a part of the earth and a part of the rain that continues to fall with a rhythmic thrum that is the only sound in the universe. You are drifting now toward a cave made of blue salt, where the walls glow with a soft internal light, and the air is dry and warm and carries the scent of ancient minerals and hidden treasures that have been resting in the dark for 1,000,000 years. You find a flat stone within the cave that is covered in a layer of white sand, and you lie down on it, feeling the salt crystals beneath you, providing a grounding energy that pulls the last of your awareness down into the deep and quiet places of the world. The light in the cave begins to fade very slowly until it is just a faint shimmer on the walls, and you watch as the shimmer disappears into the blackness, leaving you in a state of total and absolute tranquility, where there is no more path to follow and no more story to tell, but only the infinite and beautiful dark of a sleep that has no dreams and no end. You are sinking through the salt and through the stone and through the forest floor until you are the silence itself, and you are finally ready to be still forever in the long and quiet night. The silence itself becomes a bridge of soft gray vapor that leads you into a hall of mirrors made of polished obsidian, where the reflections are not of your face,
but of the slow and steady movement of the distant galaxies as they drift through the eternal dark like dust motes in a beam of moonlight. You are walking down this hall with feet that make no sound, and you feel the cool air of the cosmos touching your skin with the lightness of a ghost's breath as you move toward a center point where the gravity is so balanced that you feel completely weightless, like a single feather floating in a vacuum of pure peace. There is no clock here and no calendar, because time has been dissolved into a liquid state that flows around you like a warm river of dark chocolate, and you let yourself sink into this river, feeling the density and the sweetness of the quiet wrapping around your limbs and making them feel heavy and loose and perfectly at rest. You watch as a single star in the distance begins to flicker in a slow and rhythmic pulse that matches the steady rise and fall of your abdomen, and you count the flashes of light one by one, letting each number drift away into the void like a balloon released into a vast and empty sky. You see a staircase made of shadows that leads down into a garden of obsidian flowers that bloom only in the absence of light, and their petals are as soft as velvet and as cold as the deep sea, and they exhale a fragrance of wet stone and night-blooming jasmine that fills your senses with a profound longing for the sleep of the earth. You lie down in the middle of these flowers and feel their petals closing around you like 1,000 tiny blankets that are tucking you in for a rest that will last for an eternity of quiet nights and silent mornings. You imagine a giant pendulum made of crystal that is swinging back and forth in a slow arc across the horizon, and you watch its movement as it goes left and right and left and right until your eyes are unable to stay open any longer and you surrender to the rhythm of the swing. The garden begins to fade into a mist of deep indigo, and the obsidian hall disappears into a cloud of violet smoke, and you are left alone in a space that is neither high nor low, but simply a state of being where the only thing that exists is the long and beautiful silence of your own breath. You are sinking deeper through the flowers and through the shadows and through the velvet dark until you reach the very core of the stillness where the universe was born and where it will eventually return to rest. And you are happy to be a part of that journey into the infinite and dreamless sleep that waits for you at the end of every thought and every word. The infinite and dreamless sleep becomes a vast and silent library of white marble, where the books are made of thin sheets of ice, and the writing on the pages is written in the language of the falling snow, which only the heart can understand in the absolute quiet of a winter night that never ends. You are walking through the aisles of this library, and the air is so still that you can hear the faint sound of the frost forming on the window panes, like the growth of a crystalline forest in slow motion. And you find a chair made of soft gray swan feathers that molds itself to the shape of your body as you sit down and let your head rest against the cool stone of the pillar behind you. You pick up a book of ice, and as you turn the pages, you feel the coldness radiating into your palms and moving up your arms like a gentle wave of numbness that calms every nerve and settles every muscle into a state of deep and heavy surrender. The stories in the books are not made of plots or characters, but of the sound of the wind moving through a hollow canyon, and the feeling of a single drop of rain hitting the surface of a still pond. And you let these images wash over you until your mind is as clear and as cold as the ice itself. You watch as a small candle made of white wax burns on a table nearby, and the flame is a steady point of gold that does not flicker or smoke, but simply exists as a monument to the stillness of the room. And you follow the glow of the flame until it becomes the only thing you can see in the darkening hall. You imagine a giant hourglass where the sand is replaced by tiny pearls of light, and you watch as they fall one by one through the glass, creating a soft rhythmic ticking that is the only clock you will ever need to follow as you move closer to the edge of the world. The library begins to dissolve into a field of tall silver wheat that sways in a slow and rhythmic motion under a sky of deep charcoal. And you are walking through this field of mist, and the air is filled with the faint and soothing scent of chamomile and rain-drenched soil, which makes your lungs feel light and your heart feel steady as a pendulum in a tall clock that has been ticking for 1,000,000 years in a silent house. You reach a circular lake in the center of the valley, where the water is as still as a sheet of dark glass. And as you look into the water, you see the reflection of 1,000 tiny stars that are slowly spinning in a spiral of light that looks like a whirlpool of dreams. The cycle of eternal and beautiful rest leads you into a vast valley of soft gray clouds, where the ground is made of thick white mist that cushions your every movement like a bed of down, and the sky above is a canopy of soft velvet in the color of a faded plum that holds the warmth of 1,000 summer evenings. You are walking through this valley of mist, and the air is filled with the faint and soothing scent of chamomile and rain-drenched soil, which makes your lungs feel light and your heart feel steady as a pendulum in a tall clock that has been ticking for 1,000,000 years in a silent house. You reach a circular lake in the center of the valley, where the water is as still as a sheet of dark glass, and as you look into the water, you see the reflection of 1,000 tiny stars that are slowly spinning in a spiral of light that looks like a whirlpool of dreams.
You sit at the edge of the lake and pick up a smooth black stone that feels heavy and cool in your hand, and you watch as the stone begins to glow with a soft blue light that matches the rhythm of your own breathing, until the stone and your hand become one and the same. You drop the stone into the water and watch the ripples spread out in perfect concentric circles that move slower and slower until they disappear into the edges of the mist, leaving the surface of the lake even more still than it was before. You imagine a giant book where every page is a different shade of gray, and you are slowly turning the pages one by one, feeling the texture of the paper and the weight of the silence that lives between the lines, until your mind is as blank and as quiet as the pages themselves. The valley of mist begins to rise up around you, wrapping you in a blanket of soft white vapor that hides the lake and the sky and the stars and leaves you alone in a world of pure and absolute tranquility, where there is no sound and no light and no movement, but only the feeling of being held by the universe. You see a door made of ancient oak in the middle of the mist, and you walk through it into a room where the walls are made of soft brown earth, and the floor is covered in a layer of dried rose petals that smell of old memories and quiet afternoons. You lie down on the petals and feel the coolness of the earth beneath you as it pulls the last of your energy down into the dark and quiet places where the seeds are sleeping and the roots are resting in a state of perfect and beautiful darkness. You are sinking now through the petals and through the earth and through the mist until you are no longer a person or a thought or a memory, but only a part of the infinite and silent cycle of the night that goes on and on and on into the deep and dreamless sleep that has no beginning and no end. And as you drift into that sleep
that has no beginning and no end, you find yourself in a vast hall of floating feathers where millions of tiny white plumes drift through the air in a slow-motion dance that mimics the falling of snow in a world without gravity. You are moving through this sea of softness, and every time a feather touches your skin, it brings a sensation of profound lightness, as if the very atoms of your body are being untethered from the weights of the earth, and you are becoming a part of the air itself. The hall is illuminated by a soft pearlescent light that has no source, but seems to emanate from the silence itself. And as you move deeper into the space, you hear the faint and distant sound of a silver bell that rings only once every 1,000 years, and the vibration of that single note remains in the air like a physical presence that calms your mind and settles your spirit. You see a large clock face on the floor, made of polished lapis lazuli, but it has no hands and no numbers, because in this place time is a circle that never moves and never changes, but simply exists as a state of being where you are always safe and always at rest.
You lie down on the clock face and feel the coolness of the blue stone through your back, and you watch the feathers as they slowly settle on top of you, covering your legs and your arms and your chest, until you are buried in a mountain of white softness that is as warm as a summer afternoon and as quiet as a forgotten dream. You imagine a giant waterfall made of liquid silk that is falling from a height so great that the water never reaches the bottom, but turns into mist before it touches the ground. And you watch this process over and over again until your eyes become too heavy to follow the movement, and you let them close in a final and total surrender to the dark. The hall of feathers begins to dissolve into a field of tall purple clover that smells of sweet honey and old wood, and you are lying in the center of the field, watching the clouds move across a sky that is the color of a deep sapphire, and you feel the earth beneath you breathing in a slow and steady rhythm that matches the pulsing of the stars above. You are sinking now through the clover and through the stone and through the feathers until you reach the very center of the silence, where there is nothing left to do and nothing left to say but to exist in the perfect and beautiful dark of a sleep that is as deep as the ocean and as vast as the sky and as quiet as the heart of a stone that has been resting at the bottom of a well for an eternity of nights. The heart of the stone becomes a gateway to a world of liquid starlight, where you are floating in a warm and glowing sea of amber and gold that moves with the slow and heavy grace of a planet turning in the void. There are no shores to this sea, and no depths, but only a constant and unchanging state of suspension, where you feel the weight of the universe being lifted off your shoulders and replaced by a sense of infinite lightness that allows you to drift through the silence like a wisp of smoke in a still room. You see a giant tree growing out of the water with branches made of white coral and leaves made of clear glass that catch the amber light and refract it into 1,000 tiny rainbows that dance across the surface of the sea in a slow and hypnotic pattern. You drift toward the tree and reach out to touch a leaf, and as your finger makes contact, you feel a wave of cool energy moving through your body that dissolves the last remaining spark of conscious thought and replaces it with the pure and simple feeling of being alive in a world of peace. You find a hollow space within the roots of the coral tree that is lined with soft sea moss, and you climb inside, feeling the enclosure of the wood and the stone, protecting you from the vastness of the amber sea and the golden sky. You imagine a giant hourglass where the sand is made of crushed diamonds, and you watch as each tiny spark falls through the center in a stream of light that looks like a falling star that never reaches the ground because the glass is infinite and the time is eternal.
The amber sea begins to darken into a deep and velvety violet, and the rainbows on the water fade into a soft and steady glow that looks like the embers of a fire that has been burning for 1,000 years in a room filled with the scent of dried rose petals and old books. You feel your limbs becoming as heavy as the roots of the tree, and your breath becoming as slow as the movement of the tides, and you realize that you have finally reached the end of the journey and the beginning of the rest that you have been seeking through the forest and the desert and the mountains and the sea. You are sinking now through the moss and through the coral and through the amber water until you reach the absolute center of the quiet, where there is no more light and no more sound and no more motion, but only the deep and beautiful dark of a sleep that is as old as time and as new as a heartbeat in a silent world, and you are finally and completely home.